Hello everyone and welcome to the latest episode of You Deserve Fresh Lettuce. I am your co-host Rachel. And this episode we're going to be talking about the violation of trust. It happens in more ways than you probably even realize is happening. If you're not doing so already, please follow us on social media at YDFL Podcast. And remember, you can listen to us on your favorite podcast platforms, including to the 28 countries. We have listeners in 28 countries. Head on over to YouTube.
Yes, and check us out because guess what? We're trying to grow our following, and we are on other podcast platforms like iHeartRadio, Spotify, Pandora, you name it. But we are trying to grow our following on YouTube. So like, subscribe, listen.
Pump the algorithm. Let's go.
Let's put a comment in there.
Yeah, you know what? Okay, let's talk about the violation of trust. We were talking off camera about this because, ironically enough, in talking about it, we realized we kind of participate in that.
Not intentionally, in an indirect way, I think. Like, not intentionally. I think that we view ourselves as harmless. And I think that people come to us, and I want to put this hat on right now and be like, because they want advice, but we don't even we don't even have it together. But I do believe that a lot of the time people do come to you to say, I need to talk to you. And we think we're harmless because we understand that this person, not married people for me, but just people maybe are in a relationship. And so it's easy for me to be like, that's awesome, but this is what you got to do, or this is what you should do or shouldn't do, whatever.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, fiance, girlfriend, whatever, is looking at the phone and
is not having it.
It is not good because then they think he's sidestepping. And partially, depending on what his ulterior motive is, it could be sidestepping. It could, but in my eyes, in my view, I don't think it is.
So that's the part that's so hard. And we do talk about this because for me, that I'm a businesswoman, I meet a lot of people in business.
Yeah.
And I'm not concerned about whether they're single or divorced or married, or I that's not a concern of mine. I don't sit there and go, are you married? Are you divorced? You have kids? Like, I'm not like trying to date people that I'm doing business with, right? Which some of you might go, well, Rachel, you need to get it together.
Yeah. It's the best way to meet somebody.
You know what I mean? It's just not my focus or how I operate. So what ends up happening is, as a woman in business, I focus a lot on building a sort of authority and respect in the market. And as that happens, the men, most of which are pretty high level, decent level guys, right? They start to go, you know what, Rachel? We should do lunch. And then I go, yeah, let's do lunch, because I'm literally just thinking this is a great business connection, you know?
Connect, yeah.
Or we met at a conference, or we met whatever, this is so wonderful. Cool, I'll go to LA, let's go have lunch. We have lunch. And then all of a sudden it becomes like, the email is sent, and it was wonderful having lunch, and and are you available for a call next week? Yeah, let's do the call. Eventually, it leads to like text message,
random. Go to Vegas, baby.
You know, and
you're like, what?
Too. And then and you sit there and you go, okay, wait, he has a whole wife and kids.
That never stopped nobody.
And yet, put my guard down.
Never stopped nobody.
Through the whole, I want to pick your brain, and I just want your advice. So I know I'm harmless because I know I would never.
Yeah. You know what trips me out that you're saying that is a lot of the time, for me anyway, what I've noticed is that they'll say, because lunch to me for business seems very normal.
Yeah.
Hey, let's meet for lunch. No big deal. Let's meet for lunch. When someone says let's meet for dinner, that's intimate in my opinion. Like, that is family time. And if a person is married, unless it's like a big business meeting that, you know, their other colleagues
people are going
to be, it's not just you and him. I think that then, I think it's kind of like, it's okay. I find it to be okay, by the way.
Yeah.
But if the person's married and you're going to dinner with them and you're supposedly talking business, if it's opposite sex, like I just see something wrong with it. Me as a single woman, if a man came to me and said, I want to talk to you, I want to do business with you, and I want to talk to you about business, and I want us to meet for dinner at whatever restaurant. If he's married, I feel that's not my place, and I feel that I need to be respectful of his partnership,
he's not
his
gonna
marriage.
Hold the line, ladies. We need to hold the line for this woman that you've never met before.
Right. And you know, it's happened before where it's like, okay, well, are you gonna bring your wife? Why would I bring my wife? Well, I mean, it's dinner. Like, No, no, I'm not gonna, no, blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, then I'll meet you for lunch. If you want to talk business, we could talk business over lunch, or we could do a Zoom.
Yeah, or coffee
there's really,
or whatever.
there's really no reason to meet someone for dinner. So, but I do think that a lot of the time, there are the women that do see that, they'll actually seek out the married men, because guess what? They don't need to be the ones doing the laundry, cooking, cleaning. Yes. Even if you are at home, or even if you do have your career, you still have a responsibility to that man. Yes. And so you, as a woman coming in, you have no responsibility to him other than look good, smell good, be good. That's just how you're showing up to the world anyway, because you're single.
And he's spending money
on you.
And
he's spending money on you. And I think there's nothing right. There's nothing good comes out of that, is what I'm saying.
There isn't. So I think if you're like Delia and I, that we get asked a lot about our advice, whether it's because we do this show, whether it's because we're in business, and no matter what it might be, they want a female perspective on a lot of different things. Great. It could be really flattering, by the way. It's like, oh yeah, of course, like we want to share what we know and things like that and help people, because we're on this mission to help as many people as we can. However, it's not always clear what the man's intentions are. And by the way, the man's intentions might not be sexual or inappropriate in any way at first, but we have to, as women, band together and put the shoe on the other foot and like literally go, if this was my husband,
how would I feel?
Would I appreciate, or fiance or boyfriend, would I appreciate that he is turning to another female, okay, whether you think she's cute or not cute or whatever, another female, to get advice, to get guidance, to get support, to cry on her shoulder, whatever it might be, like, would you want that? So we're guilty of going, but I'm harmless. You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't go there. But if we put the shoe on the other foot, we realize, I don't know.
That might not be a good thing.
Yeah. And then it makes us look at the guy now that we thought was completely just
and then not to mention the violation of what we're talking about. Now, when that happens, and let's just say your fiance, your girlfriend, your wife finds my number, your number, anybody's number, they may not see that this is how you show up to the world, because everyone else, and I'm not saying everybody, because, but I'm saying most people will show up to the world to, see what they can get out of the man, right? Because he's obviously maybe well-to-do or what have you, or maybe he's married and she knows that he's willing to give something up that time.
That wife knows how easy it was to get that man.
And so she has to be very protective of that.
She didn't do a whole lot probably to get that man.
And she has to protect that. And so when you actually uncover this, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, why are you talking to her? Well, I was getting advice. Well, why are you talking to this? Or, it's like I was getting advice from her, but she's not a therapist. But I wanted her to give me the breakdown on
the female perspective of
whatever it is.
How to be a better man for you, babe.
Yeah, exactly. But then it's like, really, that's not what you were asking. And so I think a lot of the time, unfortunately, if the trust is broken, it's so hard to come back from that, by the way. Like, once that trust has been violated, however, even if it isn't, my mom would say this in Spanish, no hagas cosas buenas que aparentan malas. Mm-hmm. Don't do good things that look like you're doing bad things.
Yeah.
And my mom would always tell me that, because anytime, I was doing something, and then she would right away, she'd snap, she'd be like, don't be doing that. If it's a good thing, don't go out there acting like it's good when it looks bad.
Yeah.
And that was like such a true saying, in my opinion. I know in the past, we've been here at the office where, like, there's a therapist trying to act like I'm the therapist, because he's saying I'm the therapist.
He has her saved in his phone as the therapist.
I am the therapist, and I'm all about giving good advice, by the way, if I can, because I'm always all about salvaging marriages if I can. I think it's important to do our due diligence, because obviously someone out there didn't care about the marriage, and either or didn't care. But regardless, like, I think we're on a mission here to kind of give lend perspective. And I think that at the end of the day, hey, you know what? If you have me saved under your therapist, but you have another, like,
a whole wife or
fiance, like, don't do those types of things. It just makes you look bad. And I think at the end, and I'm not just saying for me, just in general, I'm not talking about me only. I'm talking about, generally speaking, people around the world, the 28 countries that we talk about, like, all of you men, like, seriously, don't go out doing good things or bad things that look good or whatever it is that my mom would say, like, just be a righteous man, because guess what? You violate that trust and she's not coming back from that.
Like Madonna said famously in the 90s, the road to hell is paved in good intentions.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And let me tell you, we as women don't always realize that we're partaking in that. And it is very common being in the workplace. You make male friends. And I saw this thing, it was a visual survey, and I was telling Delia about it. And these guys, they went, I think they're YouTubers, I don't know, but they're doing the survey. And they went to a big corporate building, similar to the building that we're in. And they went like during lunchtime, and all the guys that were coming out, some of them knew each other, some of them didn't. They said, we're going to ask 100 men. And they did it on camera. Do you believe that a man can be friends with a woman and have no sexual intention with her?
Yeah.
And 100% of
100
the 100 men said no.
Okay.
And then they did the same building, the same everything. Women were coming out on their phones, going to lunch, whatever, and they stopped 100 women and they asked the 100 women the same thing, but they said, do you believe that women can be friends with the man, with Ben, without having any sexual intention? And 100% of them said, yeah, no, we could be friends. So ladies, we're not dealing with the same deck here.
No.
You're thinking he's just the nice guy from the office and he wants to go to lunch with me.
Yeah, no big deal.
And it's harmless. Or, he reached out to me the other night because he's having a hard time with his wife and he just wants advice, to make it better. No. That is a doorway that is cracked open. He's getting in there. He's getting his little stimulation, or there's something that happens because we're not men, so we don't know.
But you do hear it and you do see it, and even in the past, where they're like, I don't know what to do with her, and and she's doing this and she's doing that, and I wish she was more like this, that, or the other. Not saying that they want her to be more like you per se, but they're kind of alluding to.
They're complimenting you by the way they do this. They will compliment you through kind of digging on their wife in the name of help me help her.
Help me get.
They put her down to compliment you, but for you to help her. It is the most twisted,
really weird
thing.
It is really strange. And at the end of the day, it's like, and I always say this, and I know it sounds funny, and I was like, what you need in your life? You need Jesus.
You need Jesus. JC, call him up.
You need Jesus Christ. You really do. And I always say you have to go and you got to pray. And I, by the way, no joke. This is no joke. All jokes aside, I think that if you are violating trust, if you are doing these things, then you probably need to go to the higher power and say, why am I being defined in my marriage? Why am I doing these things? And I'm not just saying just men, because women do it too, by the way. And I say this all the time. But at the end of the day, like, you have to get back to a place of why you're being tempted. And if you are being tempted, maybe you need to go back to the drawing board and maybe start getting closer to God. Because I think that the devil is a mother effer, by the way.
And men have a lot on their shoulders. So if you're a woman and you're married to a man, you have to understand, if you have kids, the kids are leaning on mommy. They're leaning on you, okay? You are then taking that heaviness, that weight, and then you're leaning on him. And if he has no one to lean on, right, because you don't want him, you're like, don't go to your mom talking crap about me, don't go to your brother talking crap about me, because women are controlling. He needs a higher power. He needs something bigger than him. And that's why pillar. Christian men, you'll talk to them and they're very like, oh, they're not perfect, at the end of the day, but they try to take it to the cross and they try to pray on it, because they understand the world's going to give them bad advice. They're going to go golfing with the buddies and they're going to go, here, just go on this app. Like, I learned the other day, by the way, that if you go to your notes, guys, if there's guys in here, you guys need to leave, because we're about to talk about some stuff. Supposedly,
they're going to be tagging their friends. Like, kidding me? They're like, oh, you need to hear this advice?
But, like, here's an example. Like, you can go to your phone notes, and you might have known this, but, like, you go to your notes, and if you share the notes with the person, now you're having a whole conversation in your notes app on your phone.
I know. I actually did not know this.
And you can passcode that note and go back and forth and and blah, blah, blah. It could be like grocery lists.
Oh.
And now you're
back and forth. Love letters on your notes.
You know what I'm saying? Notes. And the other person can see it. And so what I'm getting at is, like, there's no way for you to plug all the holes. Like, each individual person in the marriage has to be willing to be diligent to say, I'm not going there. I'm just not going there with this coworker. And I know, I got cheated on, you got cheated on. And one of the things when I said why, this was early on, the first one, what in the world? I saw this woman. I was like, there's no freaking way that I'm going.
She's
got no shot. No shot. There's no shot.
Right,
this is who you cheated
with.
He
shot her all up. He shot her all up.
She got shot up. All syrup, no pancakes, let me tell you. So I can say to you, I was like dumbfounded. And when I said, what would possess you to do this with this person? This was the first one. The devil possessed me. He said she came to me in the lunchroom or whatever and was talking about how her husband is addicted to porn and doesn't see her attractive, and she's a very sexual woman and she needs it every night and she doesn't know what to do because he doesn't want to give it to her.
Okay.
And so now she's having a very open conversation with a married man.
Oh, wow.
Who was very young. We were very young. Totally. But he saw that, and now what's the visual? The visual is this woman needs it.
He needs to save her.
And she's chosen him, because she was 10 years older than him, to, be the one to give it to her.
Save her.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so at the end of the day, these are not, I think no man or woman who are not married should be so comfortable as to have these types of conversations with each other. Yet we're all guilty of it.
To a degree, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's a little bit TMI. That is a little TMI. If we're all having an open dialogue, I think there is time and place for everything. And then on top of that, there is a person to say that to, by the way.
Yes.
You don't say that to a male, because you are basically offering yourself.
Yes.
You're the ofrenda.
Yes.
And so it's you understand that if the man's married, you shouldn't be doing that. There's no reason for it. If he has a girl
in his life, I always say this in the comments when I'm on TikTok when I see these cheating videos. I always say, ladies, we hold the keys here to a perfect world. Imagine a world where every woman refuses to get involved with the man who's married or with a woman. Yeah. Imagine a world where every woman bands together and says, I refuse to get involved with this man who's involved with another woman. Imagine how many things get solved.
I almost feel, in my opinion, the fact that you're saying that, I almost feel like it sounds very toxica, but it almost you almost have to come at someone and be like, you know what, I'm not the one if you got somebody at home. I'm not the one if you're talking to someone on the weekends. I'm not the one if you have a kind of girlfriend. If you're kind of sleeping with someone. Yes. Do not come talk to me, because lately I've noticed that the guys will do this whole thing, right? And we've known this forever and ever, but I think it's more prevalent because of social media, yes. because of all the things and the accessibility to these apps. And so what they do is they double dutch and they switch off, and then they're like, hey, I'm going to talk to her and I'm going to talk to her. And so you're thinking that it's not a big deal. We're just having a conversation. But at the end of the day, it's like what you just said. That survey that they took at the building, 100% of the guys think, hey, all day long, twice on Sundays with that girl. And then the girls are over here thinking, right, and the girls are thinking, no, we're just friends. He's just my worker. He's my coworker. He's just my worker buddy. But at the end of the day, I think you need to be very aware of what you're saying, because if you're saying I need to get it, it's how you say it, right? I need to have it every night and this, and I need to hold on to this.
You should not be having a sexual conversation with a man who is in a relationship. If you are having a conversation about sex on any degree with a man that you know is in a relationship, you are actively participating in the demise of that whole thing.
I agree. I agree.
That is just not
I will tell you, a quick story, because, I am Mother Goose.
We got a story. I'm like, Delia, what are you doing after work? When you're leaving here, Delia, what in the world circles are you hanging out?
No, I'm just saying, going back to the story time, sometimes you're in private with people, but then there's sometimes people that are very forward, even around people, by the way. It's like that famous, that
the Geminis. The Geminis, you know who you are, man. They stay talking about BJs and all this at the dinner party.
Okay. Yeah. You're like, quick, give me that banana right now. Bring it. Let me show you.
Let me show you how
you do this. Okay, this is how you do that. It's like, what in the Heavenly Father? Yeah. And so, there was an incident where I was, before a bunch of people were having dinner, and all of a sudden, this girl sitting right across from the person that my old colleague, and she's drinking, her champagne, and she starts rubbing on herself the champagne does this to me, and I don't know. I'm not kidding you. She's drinking the champagne. She's like, I don't know. It's in Spanish. No sé, es que las burbujitas me hacen algo. The little bubbles do something to me, okay? And then she ain't looking at me.
You're like, well, I hate to pop your bubble at this moment, but here's what we're going to do.
This is what we're not going to do.
Yeah.
And so what I'm saying is, sometimes it's so innocent, right? And it's not because I'm a toxica, I promise you. Because
that is not innocent, Delia.
Okay, I'm just saying it sounds innocent.
The lady was full on body rub across from your husband, aka
my old colleague, right?
Old colleague,
the
yeah.
old colleague. And then I'm watching her and I'm like, am I tripping? My bubbles, are they hitting me different? Are those bubbles hitting me different? Like, I'm not kidding you, because I'm like, maybe her bubble, maybe, is it the same bottle? Because I don't feel the bubbles. They ain't doing that to me. And I looked and I was like, maybe I'm tripping. Then here comes my mom. Okay, she's not a toxica, but she's like,
you have a sweet mom.
I do have a sweet mom.
Yeah.
And my mom's like, ¿qué fue eso? ¿Por qué hace eso ella? And I was like, right? Am I tripping? She's like, no. She's like, es que las burbujitas me hacen algo.
The fact that you could sit there at that dinner or whatever and like not respond, like to not, I wouldn't have been able to contain myself.
Right?
To just say, well, there must be also freaking, I don't know. Something else in there. Oyster juice. Like, I don't really freaking know. You know
because I didn't want to, I guess what I'm saying is this. I didn't want to, like, blow it out of proportion, because I think sometimes we're trying to be polite, and then sometimes we think like, maybe I'm tripping, like maybe it's not that. Then I was like really looking at her and I'm like, no, she's literally like, she's coming for him. She's coming for him. And a lot of the time, you have to know how to keep your composure.
Yeah, of course.
And I did, and I just was like, okay, well, this is what we're doing, huh? And so I think that you need to know when and where and how. And I think it's not always, okay, so we always talk about this, by the way, is not what she does, because she could have like been on rub mode. It's what he does in response to what she did.
That's it.
And so if he goes back to be like, well, hey, I'll show you what kind of bubbles I'm working with.
You know what I mean?
And then I think at that point, then, those are grounds for like, hey, you know what? It's not what she did. It's what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because you need to know how to keep your composure.
Because there is something very attractive, ladies, I think we can agree, and guys that are listening, take note. There is something very attractive about getting the sense from your man that you're on the same page, that you're on the same team.
Right.
There's something very empowering and attractive about we got each other. Like, we are all the same team.
Exactly.
And to be able to laugh at those. Like, it's like, oh, the flies. Oh, we got flies in the room. And I've been in a relationship that was not my marriage that I felt that way. And I was like, oh, because he goes, look at that one. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, because she tried to. He's calling her out and literally told me, like, oh, watch out for that one because this and that. And I thought, oh man, the whole father, but my whole ass baby daddy did not even have
no
my
brakes,
back like
all
that.
gas, no brakes.
Yeah, no brakes, all gas.
All gas.
He would have jumped on that whole bubble situation like so fast when I wasn't looking. You know what I mean? And I had a guy friend that was the big Hollywood producer guy and everything, Jeff Wall, may he rest in peace.
Oh yeah.
He told me he was married to two very famous women, two famous women before the marriage that he had recently. And he said the first one, Helen Reddy, that you guys, I Am Woman, Netflix, the whole thing, he was married to her. And he said that he cheated on her so much he couldn't even tell the number.
Oh,
and I said,
awesome.
what do you mean? And he said, if she left, when she was in the room, I was married, but when she left the room, I was single.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I was like, what? And he said, that's just how men operate.
Yeah.
Until he entered a marriage where all of a sudden he's like, oh, this is what it is to be faithful. Granted, he was way older.
Oh, that might be it. That might be like
she was way younger.
That might be like the ingredients to like the pudding.
But he himself was like, don't be surprised. Like, this is just how men can switch it on and off. And I'm like, oh Lord.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, because I think because we talk about this a lot, to men, having sex with a woman, there's no connection, and so it's very transactional. I mean, nowadays it's a little different even for women, though. I got to tell you, because I think that women are now kind of getting desensitized like men. They're like, well, let's just do. I'm just here for what I'm gonna do, and let's get it done and let's go. And so I think a lot of the time, because men can still love you, a man can love you, adore you. You could be his number one, but he could still go cheat, and he could still be with the neighbor and be with the cousin and the cousin's wife.
You know what? This neighbor, she pops up every time.
That neighbor's trifling. She's always asking for some sugar.
We got that freaking Miss Parker. Miss Parker's out here.
some sugar. She's that girl who's got diabetes because she's always asking for some sugar.
You know, so the violation of trust comes in the texting.
Yeah.
You know, I think that, you know, the whole, when you were saying the men go to the restroom and they come back different. And it's like, you know, at the end of the day, you know, if he's going taking his phone to the restroom, people have a problem. If he's sitting at the table and he turns his phone face down, which, by the way, I do every single time I'm around anyone, I want to give the person my undivided attention.
For sure.
I turn my phone face down. Apparently, that's a toxic trait. Apparently, it's a red flag if a guy does it. But there's. But
I'm gonna burst your bubble really quick because that's what I do. Because we're talking about today's word of the day is the bubbles. Apparently, he might show you his phone. And he might have it out. And you may have all the passcodes. And you may have all the things. But what you don't have is access to the second phone.
Yeah. I was wondering if you were going to say. I was like, there's a whole other phone going on.
And that's the problem.
Or the iPad.
Okay, the iPad. People have gotten caught up with the iPad, by the way. But you know what? Those phones. I learned this the hard way, by the way, ladies. You can get a second phone from 7-Eleven. 7-Eleven, and all you do is get one of those Viva Mexico cards.
Okay.
And then you just call call whoever, and then now you have another phone line. You turn off the phone, and then all of a sudden, guess what? Who cares if she sees my phone? Who cares if it's on? If she knows the codes to my emails, to my this, to my that? She has no access to the other phone. And I'm not saying all men are like this, by the way. Right. And I hate to burst the bubble.
The bubbles.
But at the end of the day, that's what happens too. Because guess what? I live this personally.
It's so
true. It's very, very, possible.
Even Alexa recently busted somebody. This lady said she found out that her husband was sleeping with her best friend because of Alexa. There was something that someone said, and she was recording because the kids play with Alexa, so it was recording the conversation. Because she will record the conversations. If you go right now to your Alexa device and say, Alexa, erase previous conversation, she'll be thinking for a long time, erasing the conversation. So I'm just kind of putting you on, ladies. I think you could actually have her play the previous conversations. I haven't done it yet, but this lady did something like that and heard her best friend at lunchtime say, oh my God, okay, how much time do we have? And he said 30 minutes because I got to get back to work. And it was at her house.
Hella.
And so she was able to hear her best friend's voice, whatever, and then all the moans and groans and the whatever sounds. And it was her best friend. And she found out audio through the Alexa. Yeah, through the Alexa.
Not best friend.
But I think at the end of the day, you know, the trust factor also too comes from the men being able to understand, don't be so defensive. If the woman has a question like, so what was that? Because sometimes we fish, ladies, and we think we're good fishermen, and we're just not. And you say that, oh, because, you know, I thought I saw. No, you didn't. You're hunting for information. If men could be more understanding of the fact that we're inquisitive, that we're a bit of investigators.
But usually a woman becomes inquisitive because a man gives her a reason to become that. And we are straight up, let's not sugarcoat this. If a man doesn't give you a reason to be that way, yes, you might have one. We are private investigators by nature.
We're FBI map.
We come out the womb that way, by the way.
We have signals heading to satellites kicking on in outer space
I'm
to
saying,
solve
we
the
have,
mysteries.
we literally are just built that way. But at the end of the day, even if you are built that way, if a man gives you no reason to have you investigate him, check his phone, do this, do that, check his car, check his, I don't know, wallet, his pants, his underwear, because I've heard it all. And if a man doesn't give you a reason to do that, you're not going to operate in that regard. Why? If you're very trusting of him. Yeah. Now, granted, there are women that are very trifling too, and I'm not going to sit there and give that breakdown because we're not talking about that.
Or also they're judging this guy that's a good guy based on how the last guy did it, you know, because sometimes women have been burned, right?
Because we bring our luggage from past relationships, and we made an episode about this past tense is nonsense, and you gotta let that go.
Yep.
And not every man's a cheater, and not every man's a beater, and not everyone's gonna do you wrong.
Yep.
There's gonna be situations that make you wonder, and it's the things that make you say, But at the end of the day, you know, we say this time and time and time again, we can't stress God in prayer more than we ever do. If you pray and you ask God to show it to you, holy moly, He will show it to you. Only sometimes if you're ready, though, because sometimes God won't show it to you. If you're not ready, God knows you're not ready.
It's a 2-part prayer. You can go to season 1 and listen to it because it is 2 parts. It is not only the please, Lord, show me, but also please, Lord God, prepare me to take the steps
prepare for impact.
Prepare for impact.
Prepare for impact.
All
so
right.
at the end of the day, don't be sidestepping. Sidestepping.
If you know he has a girl, a fiance, a wife, or whatever, you don't need to be polite to that guy. You can say, hey, listen, you're super nice. I know you're in a relationship. Cool. We're coworkers, but that's it.
That's
and
as far as
tough. But that's tough though.
Wow. Anyway.
All right.
At the end of the day, you deserve fresh lettuce.
See you next week.
See you next week. Cheers.